Hi, everybody. This is Bill Dotson. Thank you again for joining us. We are talking about retail and all things retail today and the future of some consumer marketing events. We have some great guests. Before we get started, a couple logistics. We're going to try to get wrapped up by about 4:45. So if you've got any questions, as you probably saw on the lead in, you can ask questions by using the Q&A feature at the bottom. Just mouse over the Zoom client, and at the bottom, you'll see a Q&A. You can ask a question in there. If it's immediately pertinent to the topic that's being discussed, what I'll do is I'll hopefully politely interrupt our guests and ask them that question. And then if there is something that we might want to hold till the end, I'll hold that one. But feel free to use that throughout this. And now I will hand it over to Liz Bennett. Liz, if you'll go ahead and take over from here, we'll get started.
All right. Thanks, Bill. Appreciate it.
Sure thing.
Welcome, everybody, to week 3 of the 4 o'clock focus. And we're really excited that we have a really good crowd today and some great speakers. And I think it'll bring a lot of good insight into what's next and what it looks like for as businesses reopen. Today, we're going to focus on the face of retail and how that's going to look, and marketing strategies are going to come along with that. So we really appreciate you. The Chamber is still very much open, whether or not we're working at home or in the office or remotely or wherever. Most of us are home. So if you have any, I just want to throw out there, if you have any needs that haven't been addressed, or if your business is really in need, as members of the Chamber, that's what we're here to help with. So just let us know and don't hesitate to reach out, and we'll be here for you. So with that, I'll turn it over to Debbie and we'll get us started.
All right, great. Liz, thank you so much. And of course, Bill, thank you as well. Yep. I'm excited to be on week 3 and really have been pleased with the feedback, and the registrations have continued to increase each week, and we're getting good positive results when we send out the survey. So thank you guys for taking the time to do that. Please also be sure to send us future topics. But today's we felt was really timely with the governor's orders that retail establishments can reorder as early as next Wednesday. We thought it would be good to be kind of a week out and to give attendees, this is, most of our focus has been business to business, but this has a lot of business to consumer aspects as well, because not only are we interested as business owners in how retail will be opening and best practices, and then how we can market messages to consumers, but as a consumer, I personally am interested, Myron. I have to know when I can go to Macy's. So at any rate, we are really excited to have Josh Sowards of Tempur International, and Myron Worley of General Manager of Fayette Mall, and also another mall in the Cincinnati area through his role at CBL Properties. Joshua is going to go over Tempur Sealy is always at the forefront of consumer research, and they're really always trying to understand what's driving business and shopping patterns, and what messages are resonating with consumers right now, especially during really unprecedented times for all of us. So the fact that they make that kind of commitment to conduct consumer research and then share it out, with other businesses is really a testament to their partnership and their commitment as community leaders and as part of the Chamber membership. So Josh is a 22-year marketing veteran with 13 years of experience in the furniture and bedding industry. And so he's got several great insights to share. And then we'll turn it over to kind of more of a Q&A with Myron, just talking through they're making decisions real time. And so some of the things that he, will be speaking to, I'm sure, are evolving with regard to the reopening plans. And I know if he's like me, I've been through the 6-page Healthy at Work retail guidelines for reopening about 17 times, just trying to make sure we all understand it. So looking forward to getting a little clarity around that. So Joshua, I know you have some things you'd like to share in terms of slides and bullet points, so I'll turn it over to you to get started.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Debbie. So just kind of getting us kicked off, I've got a few slides to share that are all about what we're doing. There we go. What we're doing as a company. Everybody see my screen okay?
Definitely. Yes. You're good to go.
All right. So we're talking about social distance selling. And, for us, from a digital transformation perspective, we work with a lot of businesses in the retail furniture category. And we've been talking about digital transformation for years. And one of the funny things is that, we kept saying, oh, yeah, we're good. We need to keep moving. And then COVID-19 came, and we realized how out of sorts we were. So this looks a little bit familiar. I think, whenever we're talking about retail, whether it's you're selling a good or you're selling a service, being able to transact and communicate digitally with your consumer is becoming more and more important. And some of the things that we're seeing out of COVID-19 is that there are some temporary behaviors that we're all taking on that are going to become more permanent. The first is really about germophobia. I think all of us are a little bit more conscious about where we're at and what's going on around us. And the second thing is that, the digital dependency that we have. Digital has always been there. It's been emerging. We've been leveraging it more, but people are consuming more digital media than ever. And we're also making it part of our shopping habit. For me, I have to go in store. I need to touch things. But the way that I start online with research and doing things, that is changing and shifting because I haven't been able to get out. So some of the insights that we've pulled together, 46% of more people are reading news sites. So there's a lot of folks online looking for information. Social media has seen double-digit increases over this period of time. And then also there's 20% more viewership of TV. And that's linear, that's traditional, that's also streaming services. So we're seeing all of these outlets start to increase, and as people spend more time at home, looking for information and also looking for outlets to stay involved and also to shop. Whenever we talk about things that have changed and that will increase or decrease, kind of because of this virus and the quarantine that we established, we see huge numbers of people saying that they believe that their usage of things like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram are going to increase and stay there. So this idea that we're going to be leveraging these social resources becomes even more important for businesses as we connect with consumers going forward. And of course, search is something that all of us kind of deal with, but what we've seen is that the actual amount of queries is down, but the click-through rates are higher, showing more intent. And also the cost per clicks are down. So for businesses who are out there buying search terms, this is a very advantageous time to be out there because when you get interaction, it's going to be more quality interaction. It will cost less. But some of the most sought after terms today really have to do with things like open today and open now, being relevant, being upfront and honest about where you are and how your shoppers and how your customers can get a hold of you. Also, a very interesting development with Google is that Google has now made their shopping ads free. Google shopping ads have been around for a long time, but I think it's been a little over 10 years since Google shopping ads have been free. And they've got organic listings now that are actually in the Google shopping ads that are free. If you have your products uploaded onto Google, you can actually have those show up in the shopping and you don't have to pay for it, which is a great opportunity for retailers who are doing e-commerce. So there's several things that are kind of going on with digital media, not only the influx of people using it, but then some of the developments around some of the opportunities that businesses have to engage with it. But one of the things I think is probably most important and something that we've shared with a lot of our retailers moving forward is what are people thinking about the brands and how they're being perceived during this period of time. And, some of the things that we saw is that brands that are providing practical information, tips of how to deal with their current situation, whether it be working from home or dealing with separation from their friends and family, boredom, or maybe it's just working at home with kids, being able to speak realistically and very relevantly to your audience is very important. What we saw down here at the bottom, and we'll share this out with everyone so they can kind of see the total numbers here. We won't go through each of these, but normal everyday advertising is it got the highest disapproval rating from all people that took this survey. And I think what we see there is that people are just not ready for your normal everyday message. They're looking for people who are, and businesses who are speaking like people and are able to kind of step up and be more connected and speaking to what they're doing, whether it be how they're responding to the virus itself, how they're helping others, how they see or how they highlight those that are helping others, or just being personal and really connecting with people. Even people finding lighthearted content has been shown a very positive effect. So I think that what we're seeing is that there are a lot of opportunities to connect with your audience, and probably more opportunities, especially during an election year, at a lower cost than normal. However, how we connect with people becomes very important, and the messages that we send also become very important. So for us, when we talk about retail, where we're sharing with a lot of our retailers, is the first thing we've got to do, we have to make sure that our content is there. We know people are spending more time online. They're doing more searches. They're going to visit your website. So make sure that it's up to date. Make sure that you take this time to kind of do your spring cleaning. And also, one of the things that we found a lot of success with retail at is live chats, virtual tours, FaceTimes, and Zooms. So this opportunity to interact before we interact. As much as we do research online before we go into a shopping environment, we also may want to speak to someone personally. So live chat is a feature that's really taking off during this period of time, giving people the opportunity to interact with a person as they are getting ready to enter the shopping arena. I would also say that the old school methods of communication, like emails, direct mails, and phone calls, are something that are also very important during this period of time. But pulsing those, and so that we don't wear people out. It's interesting, Debbie and I were talking about the effectiveness of email. A good email at the right time can be a great connection point with your audience. However, we're all getting more emails than we've ever received in our entire lives. So changing it up and keeping things moving and relevant with your audience, touching them in different ways, is also very important. When we talk about relevant social and digital advertising, this kind of harkens back to my point around being upfront and honest, making sure that we're acknowledging that things are different now. We're walking into Memorial Day. A lot of businesses on the retail side are going to be focused around the Memorial Day events and sales and all of these things. And that's great, but we also have to be very cognizant that there are a lot of concerns out there with shoppers who are entering into this shopping atmosphere. We've all been trying our best to avoid places, the places that have been open. We're very eager, as Debbie is, to get back to places that haven't been open. But I think that making sure that we are helping people, and being kind of upfront and honest about what's going on and how we're going about that business the social channels just give us a great opportunity for that. Live events are another thing that we've seen a ton of success with. These are great opportunities to get out, spend some time, a few things, make sure they're over 5 minutes long, make sure you have a great internet connection. You need to be either wired, at least have 11 meg upload speed before you go live, because the worst thing you could do is invite people to your social channels, go live, and then lose the connection. But have some things to talk about, invite people in, show them what's been happening since they haven't been in your stores or you haven't been interacting with them. But live events are a great way to connect with people and spend some time on social channels. And also YouTube. YouTube is something we see a lot, the usage of YouTube through the roof right now. I mean, it's a great way to kind of prep people and also build some excitement about getting back out into the world and doing all these things that we typically do as we go about our typical shopping behaviors. So these are some of the things that since we can't physically touch people as much as we would typically like to, there's some great ways for us to make sure that we're doing our kind of health check along the way. And as I said, we're walking into Memorial Day, and I think that, for us, one of the things that we've seen with a lot of the messaging, and one of the things we're encouraging from Tempur Sealy, is to build confidence in shoppers and your customers rather than building urgency. So making sure for us, it's making sure that people understand that a delivery of a product is going to be safe and convenient to them. Whenever anyone is interacting with a company, making sure that they understand it's going to be hassle-free. Making sure you have consultation services available whether they're in person or virtual. Then also, again, be proactive and address issues head on. This was an interesting conversation that we had yesterday around what happens. We know inevitably somebody's going to come to a retail store, or they're going to come to deal with work with a business, and they're going to have a bad experience. And I would say that we've always said that reviews are great, whether they're good or bad. If you've got a bad review, it's more about the way that you address it than it is getting rid of it. I personally love to be able to see whenever businesses address a negative review well and handle themselves with poise and class, and that's the business I want to do business with. So it's not that somebody had a bad experience, but it's how you handle it. So be proactive, address things head on, make sure that people understand what they're walking into and what's kind of happening around them. And again, from a sales perspective, we just need to have a focus that it's all about helping people succeed and supporting them rather than trying to close sales right now. And so, lastly, some of the things that we're doing and some of the things I'm really proud of my company for being very, very proactive about is we're coming up with checklists around what you can do to get back to business. And from a retail perspective, we're looking at things like what can the employees do? Whether it's regular hand washing or personal hygiene, making sure that folks are feeling well and that they know what to do if they aren't feeling well. How do we encourage shoppers to shop the right way and make sure that they have a great experience and kind of build the momentum as they enter back into the shopping arena? And then also, how do we limit personal interaction and give people space to be able to come in and shop and feel comfortable? Again, how do we avoid handshakes? I think that's going to be something that's going to be hard for us. A lot of businesses is that we just have missed that personal touch. But how do we make sure we make shoppers comfortable? And then how do we take care of our stores, our environments, the surfaces, whether they be desks, counters, doors, handles, whatever it be, but making sure that we're kind of over and above. It instills a lot of confidence in the shopper and your customers. And so I think that making sure that you're doing those things is great. And then lastly, I think, whenever we're talking about, how we're working with shoppers, when we're delivering things to them, that's something very important to us. How do we make sure that we are really following guidelines and instilling confidence in the shopper and making sure that we're doing all the things right by our company and also by them. So, and with that, that's kind of those are kind of my points that we've been sharing and the retailers that we've been working with, having a lot of success kind of coming back into this environment.
That's great, Joshua. Thank you so much. Very, very helpful slides. And again, just really appreciate the opportunity for you to share some real-time research, because a lot of the research that we took, even 2 months ago on consumer behaviors and how they're responding to messages are just no longer really valid right now. Bill, I think, do you have a question for Josh?
Yeah. So Josh, one of the things with the research, I've got a couple of docs over here next to me that I've been reading on, marketing messages and the power of retail and how we're reaching out right now. But one of the things that I think it's interesting to me is that we have a lot of companies who are saying, in these difficult times and et cetera, et cetera. And to me, I'm getting so many of those right now. It feels like the phrase thoughts and prayers. Is that message actually resonating with consumers?
I think we're kind of past the point of, within these within these difficult times. I think that it's speaking to people. We don't say that to our friends. And I think that we wouldn't say that personally to people. I think the most important thing when we think about our marketing messages is how we would interact with somebody. I always tell people, how would you interact with somebody if they were at a barbecue at your house?
Right.
What would you talk to them about?
Right.
And I think that when we think about advertising and messaging people through digital advertising, social media, or even traditional channels, when we think about taking a more personal tone, as if we were face to face with them, I think that's whenever we can be a little bit more personal, but also be relevant, in the current state that we're in.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Great. Well, we appreciate that very much. And Myron, would like to transition over to you and hear a little bit about kind of what some of your company is working on real time with regard to reopening Fayette Mall. It's obviously a key institution in the community, and we wanted to have you on because I have a feeling that people in retail and other businesses are going to be looking to Fayette Mall as leaders in the community and wanting to follow best practices. And obviously it's a large undertaking, I'm sure, to reopen. And I wondered if you could kind of tell us a little bit about some of the steps that you're taking and some of the changes that consumer might see.
Well, steps we're taking is probably the best way of putting it, because this looks a lot like logistics to us. I spoke to a group early on when this shutdown first started and was able to point out that we've been giving a lot of thought over the last several years to things like touchless surfaces. When you come to the shopping mall now, you walk through a door that opens automatically. All of the flush valves and sinks and what have you in our restrooms operate without touching. Hand sanitizer units are like that as well. So we've always been conscious in a shopping center environment for how people touch things and what, frankly, liability or safety and health issues should we be looking at, whether we have a pandemic to deal with or not. Logistically, now we're focused even more so on things that will be compliant with what those who are concerned about such things want to see happen. We're very much focused on the 10 points that keep getting mentioned by either Governor Beshear or others around the country that need to be handled before people can feel safe and confident, and we can feel like we are being diligent as we reopen ourselves to the public. One of the things that I think is going to be interesting to note is how the opening, when we first do, is going to look to everybody from retailers to ourselves to customers. In our company, we've opened several shopping centers around the country in Texas, Tennessee, and Georgia. Okay. And I think what we have seen up to this point is that reopening the shopping center, because of the scale of the commercial property and the number of entities that are involved, is a little bit like the reverse of how we shut down. We were fully open, fully active and operating. Everything was fine. And then it wasn't until we eventually shut down under the governor's executive order. And I think we really anticipate that when we reopen, we're not going to reopen and all of a sudden it looks like a typical May or June, whichever the day it is,
right,
to either customers or stores as well. Because we're a physical property and we still have to concern ourselves with meeting those 10 or other important points of cleanliness and sanitation, we've got about 150 different operators in the shopping center, including ourselves, who are going to have to address things like safety shields, sanitizing surfaces, existence of hand sanitizing units, how we implement social distancing guidelines, and just physically from everything from floor clings to the messages that we tell customers who enter the shopping center. And so it's all going to have a very logistic feel, which might be a little bit more like getting the plane off the runway and then trimming it to fly better once we physically reopen than it will. We're launching a 747 the first day we're open.
Right.
We didn't get to the position that we're in all at once. We're not going to be able to restore ourselves to where we want to be all at once, but we feel like we need to start somewhere and need to be sure that we're taking care of what we need to as we get started to minimize as many problems and issues as might arise.
Well, I think you stated that really well, and talk about, you following Josh's advice in terms of being real with your marketing message. That was as real of an answer as we could hope for. That you're right. It's going to, we all need to kind of have some patience with each other too, as you're, trying to take steps as quickly as you can to keep people feeling safe and confident. Can you talk at all about any of those plans? Are any of those set in stone as far as our entrances and exits changed at all? Are there parking changes or limits to the number of people that can come in and how that will be monitored? Is there anything you can share that you feel comfortable with?
I can describe to you what it's going to look like when you come into the shopping center.
Okay.
We've implemented a fairly elaborate signing package because an awful lot of what we're going to wind up doing as a property owner to communicate to our customers is going to be in what they see as they enter the shopping center in the way of how are we encouraging social distancing, what provisions are we making for people to be able to reach a hand sanitizer when they want to?
Mm-hmm.
What messages are we giving them in terms of wearing masks or maintaining a distance of 6 feet apart and things of that nature? So we've installed a pretty large collection of signing throughout the shopping center, starting at the entrances with messages at the doors, which both encourage social distancing and also ask you if you've met the 3 criteria for maybe having the COVID-19 virus, please turn around and don't come into the shopping center. Once you're in the shopping center, we've gone from just a couple of hand sanitizers near the play area to, I think, 22 at every entrance, every restroom corridor.
Wow.
I think 4 spread around the food court. And we'll maintain those from now, probably forever, to make available practical ways that people who want to sanitize their hands after they've picked up a piece of paper off the floor. We'll have an option to do that. One of the things that's going to look really strange and unusual to customers in the first couple of days will be the efforts we've made to control things like events, activities, dining and seating. We have a lot of restrooms in the shopping center, but based on what we expect on the amount of traffic we think we will have right off the bat, plus our concern about, again, meeting those 10 guidelines, we're going to have several of our restrooms closed down.
Mm-hmm.
with signing that lets people know we apologize for that, and here's where the nearest set of restrooms are. Entrance to the shopping center is not going to change a lot. We don't plan on closing any entrances under any of the current executive orders that have been issued, at least partly because that whole capacity issue, whether it's 33 1/3%, which is I think what we're going to wind up dealing with here,
Okay.
or 20% or 50% or any of the other things that our company has seen in other states, that's going to be something that's more enforceable at the individual store level than it is in our common area. It's not common for us to have 10 people come into the shopping center at once. It might be a little more common to see 10 people gathered at the food court. Mm-hmm. And in those cases where we see that kind of thing happening, we are going to, as nicely as we can, approach folks who are gathering in a group of as much as 10 or more and remind them that we're doing our best to follow social distancing guidelines and ask them to disperse as pleasantly as we can. But a lot of what's going to happen with regards to capacity is going to fall to individual stores who themselves control the access capacity and queue lines and cash registers and what have you within their own space. Our company is the classic example of what Fayette Mall is an apartment complex for retailers. And to that end, all of those retailers are responsible both to the appropriate municipal authority, but also to us through the arrangements they have with the landlord to follow all of the same guidelines we're following in the common area, but to implement them at the store level.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the things that are going to look different and odd right off the bat are going to be oriented on the steps we feel like we've had to take to remove seating or reduce seating, close restrooms, close fountains, not have gatherings and events and special event activity that would otherwise attract a crowd of people, at least for the foreseeable future until we see additional guidance given under executive orders or other health department direction with regards to when we can resume that.
Makes sense.
So, Myron, I've got a couple questions. We've got a couple that have come in, and one of these that I'm curious about. Before I return to Fayette Mall, it would be really interesting to me to see a video of what it would be like to come back into Fayette Mall. I'm sure there's probably somebody who's pitched you on this already, but have you thought about anything like that to show what it's going to be like so that people understand when they come in, not only is everything going to be protected, but you're also sort of setting a standard that this is what we're going to expect as you being a guest of Fayette Mall and coming in and potentially having the retailers come in. Obviously, the people who are going to be doing I see this lovely massage folks in the middle running down the columns as we go down through there. that may be different than if I go into a store that you've got where I can be distant from someone. Have you all thought about anything like that related to a video to set the expectation before people arrive?
Not in the way of videos. I think that's one reason why we're trying to be so visual with lots of signing and other opportunity to see what's going to face customers as they first come into the shopping center.
Okay.
Not sure where we would show the video if we did have the video. And in any event, we're pretty zeroed in on foot traffic and people returning to the center, not so much because they like what they see with regards to a sign that says the fountain's closed, but because they're zeroed in on the store. I mean, for us, we very much want to be in the background as the mall owner and let the stores themselves be the focus point and feature of what shoppers see. Some of the ways in which we've closed restrooms or fountains or whatever we've done in the shopping center to make social distancing a more visual thing for people has been done in such a way that we're prepared to restore things as quickly as we can.
Okay.
I think what we anticipate happening is that there's going to be a sort of mutual increase in everything from amount of people that come back once they're free, they feel free to do so, and stores are able to come online and present what they have in the way of goods and services to customers. And there's going to be there will be a corresponding, we hope, presuming good news on all fronts going forward about the coronavirus, that will be able to restore those things that might be seen as an inconvenience to somebody. I mean, if you have to go walk a certain distance through the shopping center to reach a restroom and you don't have one close to you like you used to, that's an inconvenience. But it's also a reality of what we're operating under, given that we're doing our best to comply with rules and regulations that are being imposed on us by authorities so that we can be safe and be healthy and be good citizens in the course of promoting that, but also be good citizens in the sense that we're doing what's expected of us by the public and the authorities and whoever has the ability to say, this is what you need to do to be able to open.
Right. We've got a very practical question that just came in as well. It says, what are your recommendations on public restrooms when you've only got 2 sets available? Should you limit how many people go in? And if you should, how do you do it?
We're prepared to do whatever has to be done to be able to enforce that. I don't like the idea of doing this, but I know of some centers across the country, not necessarily ours, but I know of some circumstances where capacity issues are handled through restriction of entrances. And you might do a head count of who comes into the shopping center and who leaves. One of the things that I find interesting about capacity arguments, especially on the scale of a shopping center, is that we're a property of 1,000,004 square feet of retail space. And a lot of capacity issues that get decided by either the fire marshal or whoever might be governing the capacity that's being described for a restaurant or a store have to do with the size of the square foot. We don't believe that we're going to find ourselves, at least initially, faced with such a crowd of traffic that we're going to have a hard time operating at a certain capacity that doesn't exceed anybody's limit.
Sure.
And we've got tens of thousands of square foot of common area, plenty of room to be socially distanced from each other. And frankly, social distance is not that much of a concern in our shopping center, except during high traffic, very busy seasons, such as the holidays or back to school or others that are high retail. And frankly, that's far enough ahead of us that we're pretty confident we've got enough time to figure that out. The future for us with regards to figuring things like this out isn't 9 months down the road. It's next week.
Right.
After that, because none of us have had to go through this before. And so we're going to have to, at some point, start with the best knowledge and effort that we can put into it and then adapt however we have to. And that's really, from our company's standpoint, we kind of boil down to that point. We'll adapt to whatever we have to do to be able to operate as safely as we need to.
One of the things that also has come in is I think it's a great question. We've all heard information about airflow, and we hear stay 6 feet apart, things like that. But the more that you can get fresh air in, the better, as long as it's not blowing from one person to another. So, have you all done anything related to airflow in the organization as well? I mean, it's a pretty neat idea to I've got clients who are doing things related to airflow, trying to make sure as much fresh air is inside an organization. Anything like that you can address, or that you all are dealing with, because you've got doors that naturally are closed until someone's walking up to it. It's an automatic open. But then inside there, are you all doing any kind of filtering for, the airflow? I believe there's even a company here in town that does some of those things. So any consideration to that? That was one of our questions from our attendees.
I think my response to that is we actually have a very elaborate system of heating, ventilation, and air conditioning that is different from one end of the shopping center to the other. But all of it is controlled by energy management systems that are computerized, monitored by outside vendors, and constantly modified for the different seasons, times of day, and things of that nature. Every store in that shopping center has its own individual, separate, isolated from everybody else system of heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. We also have separate equipment that manages the airflow, if you will, to all of the common areas of the shopping center as well. It's always been that way. We're pretty much sticklers on things like preventive maintenance programs to make sure that things are operational, that the filters are changed regularly, that all of those practical things that go into providing heat, air, including fresh air, are something that we're already doing.
Yeah. So Josh, I've got a question for you. I know that you all have some retail locations too. I'm not for sure if they're directly owned or if they're franchised. I apologize. I haven't read all the 10Ks. But I am curious about, there's a difference between the mall where we have people walking in and there's a multitude of stores in there, but I know you all have some standalone locations or ones where there's an outdoor entrance. Based on what Myron's talked about, what are you guys doing in relation to that? If you're aware, I know your role isn't necessarily to run all those, but I'm sure there's been some discussion inside the organization about it. Are you all planning to open those sort of standalone or at least external entrance stores at the same time as potentially a place like Fayette Mall?
So I'll tell you that. So we have a series of Tempur retail stores, and I'm not a part of the organization that runs those, but I do know that in the states that have already opened, we have opened those stores based on a situation. Every store has a different situation. So whether it's inside of a mall and has an internal entrance, or it's a freestanding or an external entrance store, I think the biggest consideration for us is just making sure that we can handle traffic flow accordingly, and kind of help everybody kind of keep their distance and play by the rules.
And have you had to sort of, and again, if you don't know this, it's okay, but I'm curious, have you all had a team training course, through Zoom or whatever, of what to tell people who are working in those stores to do in the event that the patrons are not following the rules that you're asking? Absolutely.
Yeah. So I will say we've got a very talented team over at Tempur Sealy that's created what we've called the Clean Shop Promise. And it's something that it's to help our retail stores, but also our wholesale retailers, the folks who buy products from us. It's a program that we're offering out to all of our retailers. And we're leveraging it as well. And it's a series of signage and this is exactly what Myron talked about. Be upfront, talk about things, make sure that it's very clear to people what exactly is happening and what the rules are, so that people can follow them. And then there is a series of training for all of the folks that will be working in those stores to make sure that they follow the guidelines and they know how to communicate to folks who may or may not be kind of playing by the rules. So I think that, yes, we've been trying to think of every angle. And I think that, what I would tell you is that, what we've built within what we call our Clean Shop Promise is very comprehensive. But as people do, someone will figure out a way to break it and we'll have to keep adding to it. and making new additions.
Definitely. So I have a question for both of you related to the tech portion of this, and you could probably guess I'm going to ask that. I have watched tech stocks for e-commerce and some other areas absolutely explode because more and more people naturally have to shop from home. And then I think some of them feel safer, and maybe a combination of that. Myron, if you don't mind, if you've got any stories of the tenants of the mall that are doing anything online, I'd love to hear that. And then Josh, after he's finished, to mention, what are you guys doing online to handle the change in, people being able to walk into a store, whether it's through a restriction or just they're feeling safe. So Myron, any stories from any of the folks that are at the mall?
Early on, when this first started, once everybody got over the shock of shutting down and began to think creatively about how are we going to recover from this, it became apparent to all of us early on, we're going to come up with some version of a curbside type of option that will probably look like a hybrid of online shopping with bricks and mortar retail. That'll look a lot like, I suspect, carry out delivery for restaurants, but at the retail level.
Okay.
We've got a lot of restaurants at Fayette Mall, many of them doing carry out business, which isn't going to replace the dining, but it's what they're doing and trying to refine, as we all realize that going forward, people are going to be looking for a lot more options than just, I've got to drive up to a physical building and then walk inside and go get something and then carry it back to my car. I've had maybe a half dozen or more stores, not restaurants, but stores who want to explore a curbside option. And we've committed to those that we've been speaking with that we're going to develop that. Not 100% sure what it's going to look like, because that piece of this for us is going to be a little bit like getting our shopping center open and refining its opening once we've done that. Curbside is something we know we're going to do. And even if it's just stores meet customers in a nearby service dock or a designated parking spot in the parking lot, we'll wind up doing that if that's what we need to do, simply refining that with whatever publicity, promotion, signing, other things that we can do for those stores that are prepared to do it down the road. But that's going to be the thing that I think will be our sort of toe dipping into not how we marry technology with bricks and mortar retail. It'll be that online hybrid with bricks and mortar stores, so that we bring convenience to customers who might want what one of our stores has at the shopping center, but an easier way of getting it.
Well, and Myron, I can speak personally on behalf of 2 clients that I work with that have recently implemented retail curbside pickup, and it has been met with extreme positivity, a lot of success. It's kind of like you said, it's a nice hybrid of being able to order online conveniently, pay conveniently, but then you still kind of get to see a face and know that that you've got a local contact retail. And I think that one of the things Josh and I talked about yesterday as we were preparing for this, and then we can kind of start to wrap up a little bit, but some of the measures that retailers and restaurants are putting in place right now, I think are going to continue. I think people are going to love a curbside option that's enhanced. And I think it would be silly of us to think that we will only do these things temporarily, because I think there's going to be an expectation on the consumer for even more convenience. And that, to me, that just goes along with making it easy for people to do business with you. So
I think stores that are exploring curbside are exploring curbside with an eye to the future. Curbside pickup for especially for a retail store, it's hard enough for a restaurant, but for a retail store, it has no chance of doing anything other than mitigating whatever loss they've had during a shutdown.
Right.
If you're investing in that and investing in the processes and procedures that are going to be sustainable once you've reopened, and you can marry that to your bricks and mortar option, I think that's where retail stores are thinking. They're not doing what they're doing now just to keep people employed. They're doing it because they think it sees promise for the future, and it's going to be a viable piece of what their sales are going to be going forward.
Right.
We've
Well,
got,
Bill, do you want to do one more question and then we'll wrap up?
Yeah, I was going to say, I've got two. One I'm actually going to pose to our panelists from last week because it relates to some legal items, which I think it's a very interesting question, but unless Myron and Josh tell me they're attorneys and I didn't know, then I'll skip that one and I'll try to get that one answered and we'll put it out in some of the notes. But this one's a great question. I think it's a great one to end on. I've got somebody saying, hey, how are we going to handle older and compromised individuals? Are we still going to have different hours for, and the phrase is great, I didn't know this, silver sneakers. So are we going to open up early? Or are we going to stay open at a certain time where it's only them? I know some of the grocery stores have done that. So question for both of you, for Myron and Josh, for your stores, are you going to implement anything like a set of hours that only certain people who might be older or be put in a compromised situation or have a compromised health situation be able to come in so it limits the traffic?
Well, as a practical matter, that hour has always been the first couple of hours that the mall's open. Our typical hours are 10 to 9, Monday through Saturday. And there is almost never a time where being there the first hour or two that we're open is one that would give anybody a cause for concern with regards to being coming into the mall early. I think also the entity that I manage does not sell something. So us letting only a certain age group in would be more of a store specific thing that they might want to do anyway. And I wouldn't be surprised to see somebody like a department store who has an exterior entrance and can be more firmly in control of their operating hours doing that. Then I would see us doing that on a shopping center basis.
Okay. Josh, and I know this is not your part of the company, but have you heard anything about that, having set hours?
Absolutely. So we've got several retailers, including some of our own retail stores, that are setting an hour before they open and an hour after they close for appointment only. And that's I would say that's something, being proactive and leveraging your database of customers, reaching out to people through the phone or through email to let them know that that's available becomes very important, or making sure that it's posted on your website. So yes, that's something that we're seeing a lot of retailers take advantage of, and giving that that kind of time for appointments. I've actually had a retailer that's down in Georgia that I was working with that set up Wednesdays as appointment only. So it's one person at a time in the store, and they set up appointments, and it's all day on Wednesday. And so I think that's something that's very relevant. And it's, as Debbie said, I don't think it's something that we're going to see kind of be a short-term behavior. I think that people are going to be looking for this for quite some time, and I think that's okay. I think we've got to we just have to understand where we are today and create this new world that we live in. So, and to that point, I will say we saw the trend towards omni-channel coming up fast. That people like to, we call it click and brick. People love to be able to go back and forth seamlessly between online and in-store, especially whenever you're spending higher dollars. So whenever you're spending a lot of money, you typically like to touch things. So what we saw is that, this COVID-19 crisis has really just accelerated that. And the need to be able to be seamless between your online experience and your in-store experience has never been more important.
All right.
Well, that's great. Well, Joshua, thank you so much. And Myron, thank you. We really appreciate it. We appreciate the attendance. We've had a nice steady attendance today and appreciate all the interaction. Somebody asked a question about slides. We'll make sure that we send that out. Bill will be sending a follow-up email to everyone to ask for a survey. We'd love to get any feedback on improvements we can make or future ideas for future panelists. Next week, just a quick preview, we will have Peyton Tierney and Brandon Gaines of Northwestern Mutual Life. They're going to be talking to us from a business and a consumer perspective on what to be thinking about financially to do, with our retirement, and to making some short and long-term plans to be as prepared as we could possibly be in the future for when something like this were to strike. So I think that'll be very beneficial. I'm sure we'll have a great turnout for that. So once again, Myron, Joshua, Bill, thank you all very, very much. Thank you to the panelists, and I hope everybody has a great evening.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you all. Have a great day.